Michael needed to find other clothes as soon as possible, because his stuff is in red liquid, and that really attracts the attention of the monsters on all the floors. The guys then noticed a piece of equipment glowing above the king's body. It wasn't clear yet how it could be useful. After all the business inside the castle was done, the boys went outside. Michael summoned his spirits to see if there were any kobolds still alive. The spirits reported that the castle was completely cleared of all monsters. The guy praised them for a good job. Eva, when she saw William in the spirit body, was not a little frightened and asked who it was. William in turn was surprised that the girl could see him. The boy replied that some people from her tribe have a strong connection with the souls, which allows them to see them. This girl was special, because not everyone had such a gift. Maybe it would be a good idea to just swallow Eva's soul and use her abilities, but it was too early to do that. Then the guy received a notification that there was a new quest called Monster Wave. In order to activate it, you need to take the life of the Monster Lord. This will trigger a wave of monsters. After the activation of the quest, all the safe areas of the first floor will disappear. Michael liked this offer very much and was ready to accept it, but his assistants did not want it much. They found this task quite dangerous and difficult. The guy said that he can't give up on this quest, because he hasn't even collected 1,000 kobolds in his account yet, which is needed to get a high rank. If he accepted this quest, then overcoming 1,000 kobolds would not be a problem. All the gods looked at Michael with a judgmental look, because this was very dangerous. This only made the guy laugh, because he thought that this task was too overrated, so he decided to see what kind of reward he would get for completing it. At this point, he kept trying to talk the guy out of it, but he also failed. Michael also said that even if he lost his life, William could still be his servant forever, so it made no sense to act against Michael. All that was left was to obey. Then the guy started on the button and activated the task. It was announced throughout the ground floor that the Monster Wave quest had begun. Now a mob of kobolds would attack the village. Very soon all the safe zones on the first floor would become unavailable for use. The people who were in the safe zone did not know what to do. Now they began to panic. Who dared to accept this assignment? They started talking negatively about Michael, and thinking that now they wouldn't be able to survive. To put it bluntly, there was a lot of panic. All the people who had completed their quests began to run away en masse to the second floor, and those who didn't make it were trying to hold them back so they could help them. Suddenly, a huge portal opened on the horizon, through which a whole army of kobolds began to run in. When people saw this huge number of monsters, they immediately realized that it was already too late to even run to the second floor. As suddenly Michael landed from the sky to meet the wave of kobolds, and told all the players if anyone touches even one kobold, he will take the life of the entire village. He and his team were fully prepared for the task. When people saw Michael and his team moving towards the kobold army, they began to ask them not to go there, because it was very dangerous. On the way, the guy summoned his entire army of spirits to join the battle. People realized that there was a necromancer on the same floor with them, but how could it be possible? Why such a strong man was on the first floor? A violent fight ensued. Eva also asked to participate in the fight. The guy told her to start as soon as possible, because he wasn't sure if his spirits would leave even one kobold alive. The girl said not to worry, for she had one good plan. After these words, the girl began to open the pocket space, from which she wanted to get something. Michael was very surprised that the girl could do that. Apparently, it was not the limit of her skills. From the pocket, Eva took out a large battle sword. One of the kobolds saw this and decided to attack the girl from the air. Eve noticed him at once, and dealt with him without any problems, with a single swing of her sword. Michael immediately realized that this sword was not an ordinary sword, and this young lady was very good with it. Perhaps their village was attacked because of this girl. Then the guy was approached by ordinary people to find out who he is and how he manages to control this army of kobolds. Michael didn't want to reveal information about himself so easily, so he answered a question with a question and asked who was asking him. The guy said his name was Mason and he was a member of the White Swallow Guild. Michael inquired what kind of guild that was. The 9-star heroes have a guild called Holy Land, and White Swallow is their branch. Mason told it with great pride, but he didn't know that the 9 stars were his main enemies yet. Mike was very surprised when the simple guy started talking about them. Then Mason said that his older brother was in the White Swallow Guild, and he would join it when he reached the 10th floor. The guy admired Michael's skills, so he suggested that he join the guild in the future. Of course, Michael is not going to join under any circumstances, but he heard a lot of useful information, so he called the spirit to grab Mason. After the wave of kobolds is over, Michael had a couple of questions. Mason's friends reacted very indignantly to what Michael did. They thought that even if a person is strong, they shouldn't threaten others. It's not right. Mike answered them that they are not on the street now. This is not a normal world. If they can't hit someone, put them to sleep or steal something, they can't survive here. The tower is a place where only strength decides. Before leaving, Michael spared Mason and told him that he'd only spared him for the information he needed. There was no way Michael was going to be able to hold back the wave, or he might change his mind and put the guy to sleep. When Michael left, the boys began to think about what they should do now. Mason said that his friends should run away from here as soon as possible, because most likely when Michael came back here a second time, they would not be able to survive. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, there was a fierce battle between the spirits and the kobolds. The monsters saw something flying in the sky and approaching them. It was Michael and his assistant who decided to make an attack from the air. During the flight, Michael gathered a very strong magic charge in William's hand and slammed the promo into the ground, causing a massive explosion that wiped out all the kobolds in that radius. But even this did not change the situation dramatically. There were too many kobolds. They were arriving non-stop. The guys quickly divided their duties and began to act together. All kobolds deprived of life had to be turned into Michael's servants, thus constantly replenishing his army. The new souls immediately entered the battle and destroyed the kobolds. Michael was now fully engaged in the battle, fighting everyone he saw, his sword easily able to take the lives of a couple of kobolds in a single blow. Eva also tried to keep up, but at one point she was attacked by too many kobolds and didn't know what to do in this situation. While 3 kobolds were distracting the girl, the 4th one attacked her from behind and managed to hit her hard in the back. Eva was in a lot of pain and screamed a lot, but she still managed to pull herself together, because this pain was not comparable to the pain she had experienced during the fire in her village. She wrapped her hands tightly around her sword and continued to fight for her village until she reached her limit and fell to her knees. It was fortunate that Mike and William were there when she was exhausted, so they were able to protect her. Eve was still surprised that such a strong man as Michael was on the 1st floor. But in any case, the girl needs to find the strength to continue following him. Only in this way she will be able to avenge her loved ones. Eve was again attacked by the kobold from the back. Apparently it was the only way they could achieve any success. But this time they didn't manage to hit the girl. William managed to save her, then he asked if the girl was okay. Eva was trembling and could only get up with the help of the sword, and in response she said that she was fine and could handle everything on her own. William saw the look in this girl's eyes. He could only imagine what she had to come through. Then Eva asked why William had helped her, because when she had run from the 100th floor, absolutely no one had helped her. She was glad that at least she hadn't been hurt. The girl then suggested that William was helping her because he needed something from her. The boy replied that he was now in the role of a spiritual soldier and had to follow all the orders of his master. Now the girl realized that William was doing this at Michael's request. The boy ordered his spirit to watch over Eva and make sure that the girl reached her goal. William didn't have much time to talk, so he quickly went to help his master in the battle. Of all the people in the tower, Michael was the only one who had given Eva a helping hand. She felt that she owed him for his help, and she wanted to repay him. After a short rest, she opened her pocket space again and pulled out a magical mask. It was as if the young lady had gained new strength. At first glance it might seem that he was not much weaker than Michael. Even William was shocked by what he saw, and Michael couldn't believe his eyes. how the girl managed to hide such power in herself. For a moment the whole battlefield froze, even the kobolds instead of attacking just stood there looking at the girl. When the transformation was complete, Eva immediately went into battle. The girl started destroying the enemy with incredible speed. At one moment it was even faster than Michael. The kobolds lost their lives before they could even move. Any target the girl spotted was instantly devoid of life. At this point even Michael was no longer fighting, he was just watching. Now he realized for sure, when the girl's village was attacked they were trying to find her. She has incredible power. Michael decided to keep these thoughts secret. Meanwhile, there was less than a minute left until the end of the monster wave. The guys were fighting again in threes. One kobold couldn't go more than a couple steps. The passage was getting smaller by the second, and the last kobold ran out. Michael had waited a long time and had a special surprise for him. He took out a blade from behind his back and threw it straight at the last kobold. The throw was so strong that it sent the monster flying several dozen meters away. Then the portal began to close completely. The wave was over. The system congratulated Michael for the successful reflection. Michael was pleased, of course, but he was also 100% sure that he would succeed. William said with a smile on his face that Michael was definitely not human. Eve, after the end of the wave, took off her mask and could not even stand on her feet, because she had no strength at all. Michael saw that the girl was falling and grabbed her shoulder in time. The guy asked how the girl was doing and said that such skills should not be used when she was very tired, because it could have a bad effect on her health. Eva thanked him for his help and care. Then they opened the system to collect the reward. It said that the award calculation was in progress, between first, second, and third place according to participation. Mike was already looking forward to his well-deserved rewards. A total of 2,500 kobolds had been killed during the battle. Michael had the achievement Lord of the Kobolds unlocked. All skills get plus 5 units of improvement, so 500 achievement points were given out. Raising stats by 5 units may not be that much, but the achievement points definitely make it worth it. They will allow you to learn different skills that will be compatible with the current skills. In the future their level will grow indefinitely. So Michael got the title of the best member of the Monster Wave Sweep. Second place went to Eva, and third place to William, but he didn't want to admit the fact that he was in third place without explanation. In any case, this award meant nothing to the spiritual soldier, because he was completely dependent on his master, so Michael demanded to give it to him. Then Eva came to them, looking at them with her sweet eyes. The guys didn't understand at first, but then she said that Michael should take her award as well. It would be a symbol of their future cooperation. Michael was in no hurry to take the girl's reward, because he was once given to him and took his life at the most inopportune moment. The guy said that the girl could go with him, but did not say that he trusted her. This second place award in the sweep is a very expensive item. The fact that the girl wants to give it away looks more like an attempt to gain his trust for her own personal purposes. Michael did not want to be betrayed again. Eve will have to try very hard to gain his trust. If it does not happen, then they will no longer have the sense to be together. This harsh answer would not upset the girl, but only motivated her to make sure that Michael was sure of her. The girl opened her pocket again, in order to take out a valuable item. When the guys saw what Eva was going to give them, at first they could not even say anything, because it was the most precious thing she had. The girl, to prove her honor, offered the mask to the guy. Along with the reward, she was ready to do anything to make Michael trust her at least a little. William said that it was crazy to give such an expensive thing to a stranger. How could you trust someone you barely knew? This mask is the source of her power. It is customary to give it only if it is your first and last fated one, after he proposes. Michael took the mask in his hands and asked why the girl wanted to give such a gift to him. Eva replied that it was the price for saving her life, and proof that she wouldn't betray him. Michael said that this mask was much more valuable. There must have been some other reason why the girl had given it away. Eve answered that another reason was revenge. She didn't give details, but her village was burned to the ground. She tried to find survivors, but she failed. Perhaps she was the last of her kind, and there were no more like her. So Eva had to avenge her people. She tearfully asked Michael to let her go up to a very high floor with him. The guy really thought about the girl's words. She was just like him. They both lived with the desire for revenge. Besides, Eva was ready to give absolutely everything she had, for the sake that she would have the opportunity to avenge her people. The guy reached for the girl's second place award, and said, "Just try to betray me and you'll be very sorry." Also, the guy said that this mask didn't matter to him that much, and recommended to the girl, "Don't think of it as your lifeline." Eva was very happy that Michael had agreed to take her with him, and she hoped that they would be able to climb very high. The girl called Michael her Oraboni, which was translated as older brother. The boy was very surprised that the girl called him that, but in principle he didn't care what he would be called. Then he combined the 3 awards and tossed them up. From these 3 awards, the guy received a mana ring that added plus 5 units to his mana level and reduced his mana consumption by 10%. The second prize was a mana earring that added another plus 5 units to his mana level and reduced his consumption by another 15%. And the third prize was a mana pendant that gave another plus 5 units to his mana level and reduced his consumption by 20%. William said it was a very good set, but Eve thought it was strange because all the items only improved mana. In fact, this is the perfect set for a necromancer who needs mana to summon his army. These items will allow him to increase the size of his army by almost 45%. He also remembered the promise the demon had made to him from the surveillance. He asked Michael to go somewhere more cultured. The guys walked into the towns and went into some cafe. The city was as empty as ever. Most people must have evacuated to the second floor because of the wave of monsters Michael had activated. The guy turned to the demon again and said that they had already arrived, and his name was Boney. He said that he had seen everything and asked not to hurry him. At the same moment a bright flash formed in the middle of the table, and after it some magic ring was left on the table. It seems today is Michael's day of good items. He had to find out as soon as possible what useful effects this ring gives. The guy realized what this ring would give him, but he kept the intrigue going for a long time and didn't tell his friends. Until they freaked out and asked him themselves. Michael replied that the ring contained demonic energy. After hearing that, William's mouth was still open. He thought Michael was playing a joke on him, and it wasn't true. Demonic energy is the source of demonic power. The dark power ring that Michael now has will allow him to use demonic energy when it is worn on his finger. The guy gets plus 10 units of demonic energy. The value can be increased in case of getting the appropriate ranks or items. This power is comparable to a high-level mana source. Usually, in order to get demonic energy, one would have to become a servant of a demon, and one by one would be satisfied with drops of this energy. If one was lucky, even the difference between 0 units and 1 unit was enormous. After that, Michael decided to look at his statistics, because it has already become noticeably better. The demon also offered to shake hands with him. For such a good object, Michael was ready to forget old grudges and still agreed to shake hands. It seemed that now the boy was fully ready to conquer the tower. It was just amazing. The other demons began to be very jealous of Bonnie, because Michael shook his hand. The guy replied that he wouldn't shake hands with anyone, but that he'd have to bring him something first, and then we could talk. William was shocked at Michael's impudence, because he was trying to rob a high-level demon. They immediately started rummaging through their drawers looking for some useful items, but he asked them to stop. Then one of the demons said that he could create some other assignment on the first floor. Michael was very intrigued by this offer, and he immediately started asking around to see what kind of quest he could be offered. Villiers realized that if he did a quest from the demon, he could get very good items and a strong increase in level units. Michael was also shocked by this, but he tried not to show it for now. The boy agreed and accepted the demon's offer. The conditions were that Michael would have to become famous in the tower before he reached the 100th floor. In case of failure, Michael will have to start the path of an apostle. In case of fulfillment of the quest, the guy will be able to get a recipe for cooking anything. The payment for the contract is a handshake. He was more than satisfied with the prize, because with a demonic recipe, even the sea is knee-deep. But the conditions in case of bad luck is certainly not very good. To become an apostle means a servant, it's practically the same thing. But in any case, even so Michael could not afford to miss this assignment, so he agreed and shook hands. They had to decide what to do now. It was too early to go up to the second floor. The first thing to do was to find Mason and get some valuable information from him, so Michael instructed William to catch him. William certainly didn't mind doing it, but he didn't even know roughly where to find him. The guy replied that he had left one spirit with Mason. They were a bit far away now, but it was probably still the first one, so they needed to hurry. At that very minute, William started moving towards the spirit. Michael suggested that Eve talk to him while they walked. He was curious to know more information about the mask the girl had given him. In short, it allowed him to use certain powerful abilities. Michael assumed it was some sort of supernatural power or charm. The girl confirmed that it was, then she said she could use the power, and the mask also allowed the girl to make foresight, to see into the future. Providence is important. Something like that would definitely come in handy for Eve in battle. The girl had been watching Michael so intently throughout the walk that he seemed strange to her. People from the outside world were coming day and night to use this skill. They all came to the elders to learn their future. Many were very worried about their terrible fate, so they tried every way to avoid it. Michael didn't understand people who did that. He was sure that if something bad was waiting for a person, the best solution was to just live through it and then forget it like a terrible dream. Eve said that her ability would be very useful to Michael because she had a special providence, a special kind that was suitable for battles. For joy, the guy hugged the girl and said that it was just wonderful and called the girl the best. There are such monsters as Sword Star, Bow Star, Great Thief. Now when meeting them, Michael had every chance to win. Michael couldn't stop and thank the girl without end. Right up until the demons watching started taking pictures of them. This really pissed off the guy and asked the spectators to leave. Then Michael apologized to the girl for the shouting, but she wasn't really offended, but was very happy that she could help. Despite the fact that the guy still took the mask, he believed that he would reimburse its cost, because the girl will definitely take revenge, and that's a fact. Eva sincerely believed that everything would work out. Meanwhile, William managed to find Mason and grabbed him. William said that the guy didn't move, because his friends were long gone. Now he just had to wait for the master to come. It was very hard for William to just hold the guy and not take his life. When Michael came in, the spirit asked him where he had been for so long. Holding this guy down was a lot harder than one might imagine. Michael was amused that Mason was trying to run away, for he was impossible to run away from. Then to scare Mason a little, Michael threw a sword that got stuck right next to the guy's head. Michael said that he would return the sword to Mason, but that he had to behave himself, or it would be very unpleasant. Whether he gets it in his hands or in his stomach is entirely up to him. Mason's job was to tell Michael everything he knew about the White Swallow Guild, and he needed to start now. After telling him, Michael let the boy go as promised and wished him a happy journey. William was surprised that the master had decided to let this guy go so easily. But in any case, Michael was determined to destroy his guild, so it wasn't certain that he had much time left to live. From the information that Mason had told him, the Holy Serpent Guild had a lot of small guilds working for them, especially between the 100th and 200th floors. You may even have to destroy them all to get to the Guild of the Holy Serpent. On the one hand, this is beneficial, because if Michael destroys all the small guilds, it will bring him more popularity and allow him to fulfill the monster quest. Well, it was time to start the journey to the 10th floor of the tower. As it turned out, on the 2nd floor they were already discussing the people who had caused and cleaned up the wave on the 1st floor, and they were also arguing whether it was 2 or 3 people who had done it. Michael was already a little popular. When people saw them, they ran straight to them and started asking questions. The first thing that caught their eye was the maki that Michael was already wearing. People were very curious if Michael's team was in a guild, and what their names were. The guy realized that he shouldn't reveal his name yet, so he said a fake one, he was a ghost face to the public. This information wasn't enough for people, so even though Michael didn't want to communicate, it didn't stop people from talking. People began to come up with different theories, such as that Michael used to be a criminal and now hides his identity in the tower. In fact, hiding your name in the tower is a common thing, but the guy managed to get attention due to the news about the wave and this mask. The guys decided to ignore the people and just move on, because they still had a lot to do. Right in front of the people, they teleported to another place. Michael then decided to look at the list of tasks on the second floor. Only 10 kobolds and 10 cobalt warriors needed to be destroyed to get to the third floor. With as much power as Michael had, this would be easy to do. But we had to do it in a way that would get us a little more publicity. So Michael told William to bring those kobolds back here alive. And if he wanted to see how demonic energy worked, it had to be done as soon as possible. William wanted to see her work very badly, so he flew to his task. For some reason, Eve was worried, but Michael didn't even want to calm her down and went about his business. Isn't it amazing? Who would have thought that a guy would ever be able to use demonic energy at all? He should have already seen how it worked. It was one of the 4 great powers, demon energy. A small purple light appeared in front of the guy, but it wasn't clear how it worked. During the trials, Eve noticed a kobold in the bushes. It was very angry and most likely wanted to attack. The wild monster attacked Michael. Great, this was the perfect opportunity to try out his new power on him. The boy created a demonic sphere and threw it at the kobold. At first glance, it might seem like Michael missed, but he didn't. This projectile does not necessarily have to hit the target. Kobold didn't realize what had happened at first, then his body began to collapse from the inside out. Eve was shocked by what she saw. It was demonic energy, not easy to withstand. That's what can happen, even if it touches a creature. And now the most important part of the test: if we inject demonic energy into a spirit warrior, we get an even stronger warrior. But initially things did not go exactly according to plan, because the soul began to collapse. Apparently this energy is too strong for them. You need to reduce the amount of demonic energy supply from 10 units to 1. In the end, it would be a perfect warrior, now several times stronger than a normal one. Eve was very happy that Michael had succeeded, but she was surprised that it had been so easy. Since very few people other than demons could withstand pure demonic energy, they have no idea how easy it is to use. William had already returned, and immediately noticed that Michael had injected the spirit warrior with demonic energy. He called it a great fusion. A spiritual warrior with demonic energy is a demonic spiritual warrior. It sounded really good. William couldn't be happy with the result. But there was one problem. Now he would have to energize the soul every time, which would be quite problematic during the battle. But suddenly Michael had a brilliant idea why he should do it on his own. When it comes to summoning, William is much more experienced in this business, and in battle he can control these warriors very well. He was very pleased to hear that. Perhaps Michael now realized how great a teacher he had. But it wasn't quite what William thought. Michael decided to give him demonic power to do all the robot work for him. If he injected this energy into Michael, the spiritual warriors who were summoned would automatically be endowed with demonic energy. William's soul was obviously stronger than Kobold's, so Michael decided to use all the energy he had left. The energy flow was so strong at first glance that Eva was afraid for William, but Michael reassured her and said that the first spirit master would not lose his life. William started shouting that if he survived this he would make a chop out of his master and eat it with great pleasure. The boy didn't mind. If William got stronger he would do anything he wanted, within reason of course. In the end, slowly but surely William still began to absorb this strongest stream of energy, and gained incredible strength. He was now Michael's greatest demonic spiritual warrior. William said that the boy had made one small mistake. He had made the spiritual warrior stronger than himself. Michael immediately realized that William was getting cocky again, and would try to do something bad. He needed to calm him down, so he took the mask. William said he was looking for a worthy opponent to try out the mask on. William had lost his mind and now wanted to draft the warriors Michael had given him and send them against him, so he did. The fight began. Michael was already using the power of the mask, but he didn't show it to William. Thanks to the mask, the demonic warriors had become much weaker and could no longer move quickly. This allows Michael to think carefully and plan his attacks so that he can easily deal with the enemy. William was shocked by this. He had expected a quick and easy victory, as he thought he was much stronger. Michael may not look the strongest in the tower now, but he was once the star of the tower. Therefore, Michael easily got close to William and gave him the strongest blow with his fist on his face, from which he flew several meters aside. Michael then told his demonic warrior to calm down and listen to him carefully. William didn't have to worry about the heavy blow. Physical damage to souls was nothing to worry about. But since he was still practically human, he could feel the pain, and this blow was really hard. William would be dizzy for a long time. Eva asked Michael if he enjoyed fighting using the mask. The answer was unequivocally yes. It was as if everything around him had slowed down, and for a moment the man became the strongest in the world of martial arts. But it didn't turn out quite like that. Eve said that it was probably a side effect from a failed skill. Michael wondered how a side effect could even appear. He had never encountered one before. If it was a side effect, then what was this mask supposed to do? The girl had talked earlier about the battle conduct. The enemy should not seem slow. Michael had to see in front of his future actions. Michael clung to Eve and began to ask her what he could do to make the mask work properly. The girl didn't know what to say, because it was working on its own. In fact, it is. One should not forget that this girl is a genius among her people. Even asking her to teach Michael how to use the mask would be quite difficult. He was then asked if the guy felt nauseous or something like that. Michael replied that he felt fine. If an untrained person starts using their special skill under the influence of the mask, they would most often face headaches and nausea. This even concerned Eve, because she couldn't use Providence when she wanted to. Also, Eve was very worried because Michael was not able to activate his skill. In any case, the girl was sure that the guy would soon succeed, and he would be able to actively use her mask. Michael realized that it was his miscalculation too. He thought that everything would go according to his plan, but he was too excited by his huge for the second floor power. Michael said it was nothing and thanked Eva for the useful information. Meanwhile, William sat quietly and felt very guilty about what he had done. He is a great master of spirits. How could he have gotten to this point? In spite of this act, Eva came to comfort and support him. He really missed it, so he hugged her and started crying. But it didn't last long. Michael said he had to find another cobalt and bring it here. It had to be done as soon as possible, before the guy wanted to turn William's soul into a sphere and eat it. After a while, the quest of the second floor was completed, and the guys fully in accelerated format began their journey. Without any problems, the guys made it through the third and fourth floors. On the fifth floor, the people on the fifth floor were already discussing Michael and his team. They knew that they were already in the forest of the fifth floor. They were not yet very confident in his great strength, because the stronger monster than the Cobalt Michael had not defeated. Starting from the fifth floor, new monsters appear. They are goblins that can use poison needles. At this time, the guys were actively engaged in completing tasks, and just met the first goblin, who forces on the tree and tried to attack Michael with a poison needle. Eve immediately noticed the needle flying towards the guy and smashed it with her sword while it was flying. She also said later that attacking Michael was a big mistake on his part. And it was true. Right after the shot, one of Michael's spirits checked on the goblin and destroyed it. William walked over and praised Eve for her good work. But when he got closer to her, he saw that there was something wrong with her. William noticed Eva's stiff smile and couldn't understand what had gotten into her. So he decided to ask her if everything was all right. This question made the girl think. She couldn't understand why she was laughing so hard with the sword in her hands. Then Michael said that he had finished all the preparations, and this night a new wave of monsters would be waiting for them. Now the guys were sitting by the fire it was in which they had to go from the 4th to the 5th floor. Starting from the 5th floor, instead of kobolds there would be goblins. Now they needed to get the achievement King of Goblins. This meant that they had to defeat the Goblin King, but they couldn't just do that. No one knew when the king would appear on the floor. Michael said he had no intention of fighting the king, he didn't think it was necessary. The guy knew one way that would allow him to create this wave manually. Eva and William were shocked by what Michael said, they didn't even know it was even possible. If this method really existed, the tower would be filled with rumors about it, but Michael said he discovered it completely by accident. When the guy was living his first life and was on the 300th or 400th floor, he discovered a crack in the ground, then he managed to discover this method. On each floor there is a certain place where monsters are born, and if you find it and start pouring your mana into it, it will start a real wave. William asked if Michael had used this method for his own purposes, to which he replied that he hadn't. The monsters on the 300th floor were too different from the goblins. Even if there were 4 great masters, they wouldn't be able to stop such a strong wave of monsters. When the guy didn't know about this method, he always put the monster to sleep to summon the wave, and when he learned about it, he didn't use it anymore, because at that time, he and his team didn't have the strength to withstand those waves. But now it was different. It was possible to create as many waves as the guys could, to become stronger as soon as possible. In the meantime, the people started to feel some earthquake, but it was very strange because they were in the tower. Then on the horizon they saw a portal forming. This meant that a wave of monsters were about to start. They had to get to safety, or move to a higher floor as soon as possible. A huge number of goblins began to come out and destroy everything in their path. Everyone who was outside started to run away. It was not clear why the wave started in the village and not somewhere in the forest. Unfortunately, not everyone managed to escape, because goblins could launch needles at people. If the needle reached its target, the person very quickly ceased to function. People were falling just in the middle of the streets and could not move. One guy, despite the rapid approach of the goblins, could not leave his friend, so he decided to take him on his back and run with him. But when he turned around, he realized that there was no way to escape. He was hurt that he couldn't even make it to the 10th floor, so he started crying and saying goodbye to life. But apparently not this time. Michael appears right in front of the guys and asks them to go to a safe place. People began to shout that now they will be saved, because the man who will stop this wave has come. Of course Michael will save them. The most important thing is that people keep spreading rumors about him. The guy ordered his own to rise up and fight his demonic spiritual warriors. They immediately went into battle, and began to simply tear the enemy to pieces. In fact, it was William who was calling the soldiers now, but Michael just appropriated the action so that people could see how strong he was. William didn't like it very much, but the guy said that they should stop yelling and keep calling more spirits. Then the guys noticed something wrong. The demonic spirit warrior began to burn in flames. It was the work of the goblins. It turns out they can attack spirit soldiers. We had to get rid of them as soon as possible, or the wave would be over. Eve also noticed that things were not going smoothly. She was standing on the roof of the house where she could not be seen and was preparing to make a jump to the bottom, in order to enter the battle unexpectedly. During the battle, Michael decided to take the souls of all the defeated goblins, in order to give himself the ability to emit the same fire as them. Only he will make it even more powerful, with the help of demonic energy. As soon as the opportunity arose, the guy used this skill, and made a demonic fire around himself, as well as he praised Eva for good participation in the fight. The girl looked like she was out of her mind again. Her face had that evil smile on it again. Michael was rather worried, for the girl did not react to his words. Then her sword began to emit a very strong glow, like a pink tornado. Michael initially realized that this was no ordinary weapon, but he didn't know how it really worked and how it affected people. After this not big tornado, magical armor appeared on the girl, which gave her extra strength. Michael couldn't believe his eyes. Then the girl took her chalk firmly in her hands and made a strong blow into the air. The houses that were around began to split into two halves and fly into the air. Even the kobolds and goblins froze at the sight, unable to understand what would happen next. Then all these houses collapsed on the goblin army, which was actively advancing. With just one blow, the girl managed to destroy an entire village. What kind of sword is it that gives this power? If you looked closely at the girl, you could realize that her body was now being controlled by someone other than her. After she destroyed the village, Michael caught her eye, and the girl attacked him. Initially, the guy didn't want to take the fight and shouted to the girl that it was him, but it was useless. Eve kept attacking. When Michael took the fight, he even had a hard time holding back her attacks. The girl was too strong. As Michael blocked the blows, Eva had to use even more force to push him away. But because of this, the guy flew off to the other side at a very high speed and broke several walls with his body. William ran to his aid, but he didn't know yet who the fight was between. When William saw that Michael was alive, he immediately asked what was wrong. The boy replied that something was wrong with Eva and now she had to be dealt with too, because just now she had almost torn him to pieces. When you look at Eva, you get the impression that she is definitely the last heiress in her village. William asked what the situation was with the wave. It was almost all destroyed, so William was tasked with mopping up the rest of the monsters, and Michael needed to get a grip and deal with Eve, so the guy put on a mask and started attacking. Now he needs to properly utilize the capabilities of this mask, so he fully concentrated and tried to activate the combat ghost. So far, the intuition pumped during the conquest of 599 floors suggests that this sword is very dangerous for Michael and wants to destroy him. This time the guy realized exactly, there are no loyal friends or enemies in the tower. Of course Eva has a sad story, but this is the end. Michael apologized to the girl and tried to strike her hardest with a very sharp object. But in a moment Michael began to remember what the girl was in a normal state, and wondered if he was doing the right thing. He really did not like that he began to be tormented by doubts at such an important moment. At the same time, the girl just with her bare hand intercepts the guy's sharp cleaver, and does not let him do anything. Michael immediately realized how she managed to do it. The girl could use combat providence, even without a mask, so she already knew in advance what kind of blow awaited her. Then the girl pushed the guy away and wounded him. Already lying on the floor, Michael took the ability of rebellion, and called all those who had fallen asleep here to rise up and go into battle against Eva. The skeletons quickly attacked the girl and started trying to knock her down. But it didn't last long. With one swing of her sword, the girl destroyed all the skeletons. He didn't know what to do. He couldn't even see the sword swing with his eyes. It was very fast. It was too strong. How to overcome such an opponent? It can't end like this. Then there was an explosion that threw the guy a great distance away. When the smoke screen cleared, the guy saw that Eva was standing on her feet, but it was not clear if she was tired or if something had happened. Michael looked closer and saw that the girl had a red liquid coming out of her eye. Something was definitely happening to her. It was very similar to the recoil she was talking about, so the guy still had a chance to overpower her. We had to make sure she couldn't use providence. Despite the fact that Eva was not feeling well, she was still very aggressive and tried to attack. Michael was trying to find a favorable position in the fight. For some reason, at one point Eva stopped following him, stopped, and just watched. Michael didn't like that, so he tried to get her attention and lure her to him. Eve tried to behave in a very unpredictable way. First she just stood there, and then she attacked sharply. But this time the guy was ready, for he was in an advantageous position. He ordered 2 goblins on either side of him to rise up and inject poison into the girl. The poison of these monsters works even on the likes of Eve. Because of their sudden appearance, the girl had almost no chance to dodge those needles. But even now she managed to do it. Eva destroyed the needles and the goblins with a single swing of her sword. Now the main target was Michael again. The girl pointed her sword at him and swiftly flew down. The girl was already sure that the guy was not going to get away, and now it would be her last blow. But it wasn't that simple. Michael had planted another goblin behind him, and he did it in such a way that he couldn't be seen. Just as the girl was in front of him, he fired a shot and the needle hit the target. If it wasn't for the girl's lack of foresight, it probably wouldn't have worked. It was a clear plan to poison the girl through the blind spot. In such cases, providence doesn't work, because the girl doesn't even see who is attacking her. After a few seconds, the girl froze and couldn't move. The poison had worked perfectly. Michael even managed to catch her as she fell. Apparently, he didn't want her to get hurt. Michael noticed that he was starting to stop feeling his hand. Probably some of the poison had gotten to him too. He immediately asked Goblin to bring the dart he had shot the girl with. It was necessary for Michael to make himself resistant to the poison. Despite the fact that the girl was lying unconscious, Michael told her that her power was damn hard to deal with. At that moment, the girl saw a vision, her body flying in space and her sword beside her. The girl couldn't understand where she was. Suddenly, a man appears and grabs that sword. When he looked at the girl, he was very surprised. She looked like a child, but she was already wielding such a strong sword. Eva thought the man was one of the survivors in her village. The man replied that the girl was partly right and partly wrong. The question then arises as to what this could mean. First, the man approached the girl from behind and put a sword to her throat, and then said if Eve ever seduced him again without preparation, he would eat her. After these words, the girl woke up. Michael was carrying the girl on his back. It looked very romantic. The guy did not waste the opportunity to ask how the girl slept. The first thing the girl asked where they were. Michael said that this is the village on the 6th floor. They just moved here from the 5th floor. Then the girl asked why she was being carried on her back. Michael laughed, but he was upset that Eva didn't remember anything. The guys took the girl to the room to put her to rest and explain everything. In general, it was necessary to rest all of them, because in front was not an easy way to the 10th floor. In the tower on every 10th floor there was a very large city. To get there you had to defeat a strong boss monster. Eve even knew which one. On the 10th floor sat a great warrior orc. If you judge by his power, it's almost the same as the king of monsters. The girl with a smile on her face said, "Then let's take a break and get on our way." But Michael had other plans. After what had happened, he didn't want Eva to go with them, so he told her that now their paths were diverging. He could understand. Today he could lose his life because of this girl. Since Eva doesn't remember anything, these words were very unpleasant for her. She didn't understand why the guy wanted to leave her. Michael asked the girl to try to remember what had happened on the 5th floor, but she replied that the memories were cut off at the same moment. The guy said that the sword the girl uses is demonic. It allows the girl to use her power, but in return it eats her consciousness. The girl gave herself completely to the sword and attacked Michael. This story shocked Eve. He added that if the girl continued to depend on this unstable power, she would not reach the 100th floor at this rate. Michael decided to give Eve a homework assignment, to stop using this power and to get to the 10th floor by herself. That meant it was time for the girl to get stronger and stop blindly relying on her sword. Eva agreed to this task and promised to become strong enough to be on the team again. The guy was completely satisfied with this option, and that was the deal. The guys went outside and started to say goodbye. The girl thanked Michael for his help. The guy recommended the girl not to reveal her identity while she was traveling alone, and told her not to hurry too much, because they had some plans on the 10th floor, so they would stay there for a while. William was even kind of sad to part with Eva here. The girl made it clear that she would soon catch up with the guys, and they didn't mind that she would succeed, and on that note they went their separate ways. A few days later, Michael was already on the 9th floor. There were some big monsters out there, but in essence other than size they were no different from regular goblins. A couple of good blows to the head and the orc would fall to the ground with a great thud. William noticed that Michael was doing a very good job, but he just had to remember to pull souls from them. Demonic orcs would not be superfluous. So the waves of monsters became a routine for the guys. But that didn't mean anything bad, they even liked it. William thought the guy was too cold, since he never said anything about Eve in all that time. Michael said there's no reason to worry, because he wouldn't have accepted her on the team if he thought she wasn't up to the task. She is strong and would do anything for revenge. The best thing to do now was to focus on the tasks at hand. William was supposed to bring 3 more orcs. The wave was a bit of a mess this time. It made him a little angry, for Michael had no respect for his elders. But it was not surprising, because Michael had never been raised by his parents, and William did not know about it. But now he would be aware of it. This information did not shock him much. From an early age, Michael had lived in an orphanage. Then William apologized for the hit and run and said he understood. Then Michael destroyed 3 more orcs. The task was completed and the guys moved to the 10th floor. The first thing that greeted them was the challenge room. To get into the heart of the 10th floor, guys had to defeat a monster boss. In case of failure, guys will be moved back to the 9th floor. Then on the screen appeared the records that were set by people while clearing this boss. The most interesting thing was that some people managed to do it in less than 1 minute. Most of the records on this board were about humans and one of the 4 great species. They were born with incredible skills. Without thinking long, William suggested setting a new record. William liked the idea very much and supported the boy. On the screen came the request to prepare for the test. Michael said that they were ready to start. Then the countdown started. In 1 minute the boss was to appear. During that minute, Michael explained the plan of action. William was to use his warriors to hold the boss in place as soon as he appeared. The guys were already fully prepared and waiting for the test to begin. Michael put his hand on the floor and began to conjure up a magical spear. Now he would show what he was really capable of. In this spear, guy put just everything that can be: accuracy, flexibility, resistance, and of course do not blow on all this demonic energy. The test begins in 3, 2, 1. A great orc warrior appears. It was just a huge monster with a big axe. But that didn't scare the guys in any way and they ran into battle. William sent more demonic spirits to hold the orc. They chained him up so tightly that he couldn't even move his leg. Then Michael casts an incantation in his ear and a huge magical spear falls on the orc, which immediately takes his life without any chance. The monster fell so hard that it even fell through the brick floor beneath it. It was automatically a new record. It took the guys less than 1 second to defeat it. Now it was safe to say, no one could do better. Michael, of course, had left his name, so that people would spread more and more rumors about him. Now the guy was number 1 on the list, and probably for a long time, if not forever. Meanwhile, Eva was on the 8th floor. She and everyone around her saw on the news that someone had put a new test on the 10th floor. Everyone immediately realized it was Michael. Even Eva was shocked at this result. She would have to try very hard to get at least 2nd place on this test. Who would have thought that the guys would be able to break the record of the 4 great species so easily? William was madly happy and excited like a child, and Michael kept a serious look, saying that they were capable of more than that. He wanted to go to the 10th floor, because there was a lot of things waiting for them there. William wanted to deal with all these things and wait for Eva's return to the team. For going to the 10th floor, the guy completed another achievement and got plus 5 units of experience on all possible skills. As it turned out, the guys were being closely watched by some not simple person, and he was obviously up to something not good. On the 10th floor you can get to the very first major city that is available to players. This is where the portal back to the ground is located if a person does not want to continue to climb the floors. The people who just stayed to live here made this city the largest for the first 100 stories. Michael decided to sell the things he didn't need and buy potions and other consumables. Despite the fact that the auction was already in full swing, the city market was still thriving and in high demand. Many people live very ordinary lives here, and not everything can be bought at the auction. As the boys walked along the bazaar, they were likely offered just about all the goods that existed in the tower, such as delicious food, weapons, and even a good rest in one of the establishments. But the interesting thing was that it all belonged to only one person. All the merchants called only one name: Golden Lich. William didn't know who that was, so he asked Michael, The guy said that the Golden Lich was a top company in the tower that had appeared a few years ago. The name of the owner of this company is Lich. He is the richest man in the tower. No one knows his real identity. He just has an unimaginable amount of gold, and it is also said that most of the circulating items in the tower first passed through his hands. In order for Michael to do his business here, he needed a sponsor. William apparently didn't even understand the meaning of the word. The name of the sponsor Michael needed was everywhere, and it was not hard to guess that Michael was planning to get all the gold the Lich had. It was for this purpose that the boys entered the company of the Golden Lich. There they were kindly welcomed and explained what they could do here. Here you could find absolutely everything that could be bought for money or sold. It could be weapons, things. Information is absolutely not important. The company will act as an intermediary in absolutely any purchase and sale operations. In order to make a transaction, you had to take a ticket and wait. Michael got ticket number 18. When it is time to go, the person is notified and shown how to get to the counselor. Michael got a counselor, Noah, who is in charge of third-rank clients. Michael said he needed to buy something. Noah kindly agreed, but first he needed to know the name of the buyer. The guy said he wouldn't give his name, but instead showed the mask, so the consultant would know who he was dealing with. Noah was in a bit of a state of shock after what he'd seen. Michael replied that he was hiding his face behind a mask for a reason, so he shouldn't say his name out loud. The counselor agreed to everything and said that he had to pay first. The guy handed over a mashup with 3,000 gold pieces that he got for going through the waves on the floors. Noah was very curious as to what they wanted to buy with that amount of money. Michael replied that he wanted to buy the time of the Golden Lich himself, in order to meet him and talk to him in person. Noah was very surprised by such a request. He didn't even know what to say at first. Michael did not understand his reaction, because at the entrance he had been told that anything could be bought here. Noah apologized and said that such a deal was not possible. I wonder why this deal can't be done. There were two reasons. Firstly, Lich is always very busy, and secondly, this money is not enough to buy his time. Without conditionally 3,000 gold is a decent amount, but it is nothing compared to the value of Lich's time. Then Michael decided to ask how much it would cost to meet Mr. Lich in person. After that, he was led into another room. William was just shocked by Michael's actions. He had just asked some guy for a meeting with the head of the coalition. But there were no other options. He had to get this meeting by any means necessary. When Michael entered the room, there was a man in a chair waiting for him. He was the manager of the Gold Lich branch on the 10th floor. His nickname was Doll. He had already heard that Michael intended to meet with the Lich. He said that with the amount of money offered, it would be impossible to do so. Then Michael said to call him here for free and he would definitely become Michael's sponsor after this meeting. The manager thought it was a pretty cheeky offer. He had heard about Michael's exploits, but it didn't change anything dramatically. The manager started to use directly towards Michael the puppet skill. In this way he was trying to show that he could control people through solid shadows. With this skill he wanted to kick Michael out the door. The manager's insolence didn't like Michael's insolence, as he didn't enter the man's personal space and didn't tell him what to do. The guy with one wave of his hand, without any problems, cut off all the strong threads of the manager. Thus he proved that he is not an ordinary guy from the 10th floor. The manager was shocked at how in the blink of an eye Michael managed to nullify his skill, and to speak at that moment. Well, that was a challenge, so the manager didn't stop there and decided to continue his sorcery. When he put his hands together, everything around him became very empty. There was nothing but Michael and the manager. He's sure the guy had never seen such a thing. But not everything was so simple. He immediately realized that the manager had moved them to the realm of the mind. It was an infinite space that was created by separating souls and minds from bodies. How a guy from the 10th floor could know about this technique was a mystery. Then Michael should have realized that the laws of the real world do not work here. In this place Michael would have to use his experience and the power of his soul to fight. The manager said if Michael could beat him here, then so be it. He would try to arrange for him to meet the Golden Lich. The manager started tying Michael up again. It seemed like it was the only thing he was doing okay, but Michael knew he was a match for him. Wasn't it clear yet? These childish skills couldn't affect Michael in any way. With not much effort, the guy broke all the threads. It looked very strong. The manager couldn't understand how the guy knew such techniques. Michael had a mental toughness definitely not lower than a man from the 100th floor, or rather even the 200th floor. The manager recognized Michael as a worthy opponent, but he wasn't going to end the fight there. The manager began to summon an entire army of puppets that rose simply from the ground. All the puppets were controlled by him. The most important thing in the realm of reason is experience, and all of these dolls were created because of it. In order to go further than the 100th floor, the manager remade them so that they would come to life when mana is injected into them, and all these enchanted toys, in fact, are not inferior to people from the 50th floor. The manager was sure that as soon as someone entered his mind realm, that person was doomed and would lose the battle anyway, so he immediately ordered all the puppets to attack. At first glance, you'd think Michael didn't stand a chance because he was pinned down on all sides. When the manager saw this, he said that all the injuries in the mind realm had no effect on the real body, so he didn't have to worry. But it was too early to write Michael off, because as soon as the manager turned away, he heard all the dolls that had been attacking fly apart from the powerful blow.